Okay, hi. This is Anese Kavanaugh, and I'm your host for your Presence is Your Impact podcast. We are still in the first 10 episodes of this show. So, first of all, I just want to say thank you to everybody that's been listening to this, that's been sharing it, for subscriptions, and for your feedback in general. Thank you for also stars and for liking it, all that good stuff. Apparently, it really does help. And as I get my bearings as I'm doing this new form of communication with all of you, I really appreciate the support. So, today I want to talk about quiet. I want to talk about the power of the pause in leadership and in our lives. I want to talk about um, this thing that I accidentally fell into last year, which I'm now calling the quiet tour. Some of you have been asking me about this. I've shared this with our program participants, and I've also shared it with a lot of my friends and colleagues. And it's been really interesting to see like what has happened for people as I've talked about this idea of a listening tour where you're listening to yourself versus listening to the rest of the world, and ultimately end up calling it the quiet tour. So we're going to talk about that. I actually just spent an hour recording another podcast where I talk about the quiet tour and I share my very intimate experience of what led me into it last fall, um, what the different components were, what some of my biggest learnings were, and yeah, very, very vulnerable podcast. So what I'm gonna do is it's still rendering. I'm going to watch it. I'm gonna see, if it feels like it's ready to release, and we will release it. If not, I might edit it a little bit, or I might hold on to it until it feels like it's right to share that information as we get to know each other a little bit better here. So just know that. So what I thought after I finished that, big recording, which an hour is a very long podcast, but, I felt that it deserved the care and attention that and I didn't want to rush through it. However, that being said, after I was done with it, I was like, you know what, actually, I probably should just record a high level um version of that podcast just to talk about the quiet tour, the power of quiet, what's available to you in the quiet, and how you could actually do your own quiet tour if you are feeling overwhelmed by all the noise that is out there right now. So, if you're feeling overwhelmed, if you're feeling like you need to, or you would like to be able to access more of yourself, more of your wisdom, more of your intuition, more of your discernment, more connection with God, more connection with what's here right now, but you can't actually shut down your life, go meditate on a mountain and check out. And you want to figure out how to do that in the midst of your very richly scheduled life. This would be a good this will be a good session for you to listen to. So, okay, with that being said, let's talk about quiet. So I've been doing this work with human beings and business leaders and professionals and parents and educators and healthcare, like, it doesn't matter, human beings who want to have more impact in their life. I've been doing this work with these people for pretty much my whole life. I think that, as I've mentioned before on the show, I think that this work really started for me when I was 14 years old. And there's been a definite chain of events that have happened that have led me to this point on this day, talking about the power of quiet in our leadership. Definite chain of events, and you can kind of go back and you can look at some of the past episodes um, to see a little bit of the preview to that, of the prelude to this. But what I have noticed is this: I think that the most powerful form of leadership that we can bring to the table, and the most powerful way that we can show up with each other, is from a quiet, aligned, present space. Now, this doesn't mean that we're not, a force walking in the room. It doesn't mean that our energy's got to be a certain way. It just means that there is a quiet presence, a very steady presence around you as you make decisions, talk to people, love your loved ones, lead your team, and just show up in the world. So it's kind of that simple. It's like there's a quiet presence, and you know what this looks like. I am sure, and you may be one of those leaders. You may be one of these people. So, but I want to invite you to think about, like, what this looks like when you're in a room or you're talking to somebody and you can feel their presence. You can feel their discernment. You can feel their pacing. You can feel um, their care for you. And they may be actually kind of loud. That might be a very big presence. They might be loud and more gregarious. But in all of that, you can feel that there is a quiet, grounded, aligned space that they are coming from that is adding a little something something to the interaction or to the space or to the dynamic that you might not be able to put your finger on right off the bat, but you feel it. You feel it. Just like there are those who are really, really quiet. They may be very introverted. Um, they lead a little bit more slowly, and they're also moving in a way that has got that quiet, aligned presence. And I think that this leadership, this kind of leadership, especially in today's world, I think that this is the kind of leadership that we really want to be honoring, appreciating, doing our best to cultivate within ourselves, not just for the impact that we have on each other and on our companies and on our culture, but the impact that we're having on ourselves and our own nervous systems and our own choices and our own discernment. Um, I think it's really important. I think I don't have to tell you if you look at the news cycle, if you look at what's happening in the world, if you look at business today, if you look at AI, oh gosh, as quickly as that is moving, if you look at corporate culture, if you look at entrepreneurial culture, if you look at any of it, social media, TV, input, there's no lack of input coming at us. Billboards, advertisements, marketing. It feels like everything and everyone is vying for our attention. And I would also add to this not just social media and media and just our general schedules, but I would also add all the people around us that are vying for attention that need us, that we have commitments to show up for, to lead, to be of service of. Our kids, our family, our employees, the board, our customers, the bankers. Like, there's a lot. There's a lot. So, this episode, I want to, first of all, invite you just to pause, just to really take a pause, even if just in this moment with me as you listen to this, um, and just to pause and just to breathe. Just breathe. Just right now, just stop, whatever you're doing. Even you might be listening to me at the gym right now, you're driving. Don't close your eyes while you're driving, obviously, but just to pause and be present. Just to be present to what's happening around you. Just to notice. And now just notice how you're doing. How are you doing? And notice the noise that's around you, all the different things that are coming at you, whatever you're doing. You're at the gym, you're driving, you're working, you're listening to this. You might be sitting on the couch just being fully present with me. Who knows? But just notice all the things that are around you, all the things that are vying for your attention. If not physically that you're aware of, even just energetically and emotionally, and your mind, like what your mind is doing right now. Just think about that. You are probably even listening to me and thinking you need to get to the next thing, even if it's like to go fold your laundry. Just notice all the noise. Just notice the noise and just notice it. And then take a nice deep breath and see if you can bring yourself even just a little bit more present and a little bit more quiet. And in this moment, what's one thing you can let go of? Like, just what's one thing you can let go of out of your mind, out of your to-dos, out of your anxiety, out of worrying? Like, just what's one thing you can either let go of, or one way you can just get even more present with me as you and I talk about the quiet. So just notice that. I have been very much aware forever probably, but really especially more now recently in the age of AI and with all the things that are happening with companies, it's funny, I say it all the time, like, it feels like it's getting busier and fuller than ever. And then sometimes I think that's gonna slow down, and then I realize that actually, with all the stuff we keep adding to our lives, things just seem to go faster and faster, and there seems to be more and more noise. And then we as human beings are getting, quote, unquote, "better and better" at dealing with it because we now have more apps and more to-do lists and more tools to help us manage all this stuff. But what I'm noticing is happening is we just keep piling on more noise. We pile on, we pile on, we pile on. We have a problem, and instead of getting quiet and taking a step back or taking a day and going and hiking and hitting the lake and doing some or just taking a nap, taking a step back, instead of doing that, we push harder, maybe get more advice to pile on top of the thing that we're working on, whatever it might be, we just add more to it, which just adds levels and levels of noise. And we can't actually hear our own internal wisdom. Just notice if that's true for you, where that might be true for you. In my experience, I have definitely experienced that. I will talk about that in just a moment. Um, I can experience it on a daily basis. I think it's a really normal human thing. The difference is, are you paying attention to it? Do you know how to stop it? Do you know how to get quiet enough to breathe and hear yourself think and to connect yourself, to connect to God, to connect to whatever it is that you need to give yourself a little bit more space in this moment before you move forward, make a decision, do whatever you're going to do. So just notice if that's true for you. What if that is true for you? Um, all right. So one of the most powerful things you have as a human being and a leader, as a parent, as a partner, as a boss, as a client, as a service provider, is the power to slow down and pause. It's one of the most powerful things you have. One of the most powerful skills you have is the power of the pause. To take a breath and to decide and make an active choice about what your next step is going to be, what your next thought is going to be, what your next way of thinking or way of being is going to be. We all have the ability to do this. It's a matter of having the awareness and the desire to actually slow down enough to pause, get quiet, and then act from there. So, all right, let's talk about the quiet tour. So, last year, I hit something in my business and in my life. The company is 24 years old this year, and I hit something last fall that I had never ever hit before. And at first, I thought I thought I may be burning out. But I've gone through lots and lots of cycles of burnout where I'll burn out and I'll go like, woof, push too hard, got exhausted, and then I'll reset. I'll reconnect with my intention. I'll do all my IEP work. I'll work on my intentions. I'll take care of my energy. I'll take a little nap. I'll get really, really present, and then I'm back in. And so I have developed a pretty good way to handle burnout. But last year, I really hit a new level. It was in the fall, it was in November. And a couple things had led up to this, which um, I couldn't ignore the noise anymore. I couldn't ignore like the little tiny quiet voice that was mine that was talking in the back, like, you gotta pay attention to this, you gotta pay attention to this. I had been able to reset, reboot just for a couple of years actually to keep things moving the way that they were moving. We had a very big vision in place. We had a lot of goals for the company. We were growing. We were scaling the work. We were launching it in companies. I had built what we called the Positive Energy Workplace Initiative. There was like a lot of stuff that was happening, and I had gotten so immersed in building it, and then also in the pressure of having employees and these clients that we were rolling stuff out with and all this infrastructure, that even though in the back of my mind I could hear this, I could feel this calling of like, whoa, 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 like, pause, take a step back. Things are not totally right. Even though I had that happening, to the point of November, did not have the awareness, the courage, or the understanding of how to get quiet in the way that I'm talking about. Now, that's saying something because I basically have spent my entire life studying and being really curious about presence and how people's intentions and their energy and their presence and their alignment with themselves, how that all impacts their ability to have impact in the world. Okay. I've spent like my entire career doing that. But for me, in November last year, I hit a new level of that and realized that there was an even deeper level that I had been override, or I don't want to say override. Overriding is a strong word, but that I had been missing because I had kept f I had allowed so much noise to kinda keep me from staying too present with this, so kind of my experience was I get the feeling it'd be like this kind of this pull, and this was for 2 years. This is about a year and a half before I really, really paid attention to this, maybe 2 years, maybe longer, like, just whispers. And I go, "Yeah, yeah, I hear that. Okay, good. Yeah, we gotta get going. We gotta keep going on this. We got clients to serve. We have this." Like, and by the way, I love my work, so it was really easy to do that. It was really easy to be like, "No, no, we're doing this. This is what we're creating. This is what we're doing." I have this back here. Anyway, very, very long story short, in November of last year, I had a couple things happen like right in a row where all of a sudden I realized like, "Oh my gosh, I need to pay attention to this and I can't hear myself think right now." So I went into a period of what I just called like a listening tour. I was like, you know what? I'm going to listen to me, myself, and God. Because what I realized was that God and myself were the only people that knew the full context of my life, the business, what I was up to, my calling, my assignment, and my heart. They were the only ones, like God and me, myself, and I, only ones that really knew the whole thing, right? Um, and God even more so, right? Because God, we get our assignment. And what I started to feel was that I had gotten wildly out of alignment with my assignment, even though I had been building what I thought I was supposed to be building. So, longer story, I talk about it in another episode. But for right now, I just want to mark that like the feeling of knowing that something is off but your heart is good and you're trying to make things work for other reasons, and it might be for because you're providing for your family, because I see this with other people all the time as well, so I wanna just humanize this. This is not just about me, obviously, always. I only bring stuff to you guys when there's something that I've gone through. I will always share my story in service of more learning, but I also bring it because I see themes and I want to help put it together so that if you're experiencing it, you can actually also start to benefit from some of the learning that I personally have had, but that also that I've seen in 24 years of working with leaders. So anyway, um, so it got to the point where in that feeling where it's like, okay, something's not in alignment, and I kept putting it back here. Every time I would do that, my energy would drain a little bit. And then finally in November, I decided to go and just get really, really quiet. I um, really looked at where all the noise was. I really looked at, um, where was I not actually listening to myself? Where was I not listening to God? God. So what I was saying earlier is we get an assignment, right? Like, and I think one of the most powerful things that we can do with our lives and our work is we stay in alignment with our assignment. We all have gifts. We all have gifts, things that we are here to do. I believe this, whether that's, if you want to call it your higher power, you know, God, whatever it is for you, like I want to honor that. But I do believe that we are all here with gifts to contribute on this planet with this lifetime with the things that we've been blessed to be able to do. And when you get out of alignment with that assignment and you're trying to make something happen, then things will start to feel off. They just will. This is what I was starting to say is that I've seen this with myself, which is who I'm talking about right now. But I've seen this 9 times out of 10 when I'm working with someone privately over the last 24 years, when something is off and they're feeling tired and depleted and burnt out even, and just generally agitated, often it is because they're out of alignment with their assignment. They have stopped listening to themselves. They've stopped listening to themselves. And usually for good reasons. They've stopped listening for themselves because they're the primary breadwinner, or they're honoring core values around being a good provider for their family, but they're not doing it in a way that's feeling good to them anymore, and so they're overriding some of the feelings they have about that. Sometimes that's really necessary depending on what's happening. But over time, if they're not listening to themselves, that can become a habit. And so they start to get burnout that way. It can be when they're involved, when they're working with a company that's not in alignment with their core values, but the money's really good. So they kind of golden handcuffs. It can be when it's time to make a change. It can be when it's time to move from a relationship. It can be when it's time to change a way of being. It could be anything. They've stopped listening to themselves. It's usually really, really nuanced, and it's usually really, really innocent. And I think that's why it's a poignant thing to talk about because I don't think that any of us intentionally stop listening to ourselves. I think that sometimes we just can't hear ourselves. And so maybe maybe it's because people never heard themselves in the first place because they've always had so much noise, they don't actually know what they're saying. I don't know, I just thought about that. But anyway, um, quiet tour. In November, I decided, let's go ahead, let's settle things down, let's get quiet. I went through a period of just noticing what was noise, how was noise impacting me, what was noise in my life, what was infrastructure noise, what was business noise, what was financial noise, um, social media, TV, people, relationships. Relationship noise was a big one. Like what relationships were energizing for me, what were draining for me, what felt reciprocal, where was I saying yes to things that I actually really didn't feel great about saying yes to them, but I wanted to make people happy or, be a good sport. And I just where was I listening to all this was a big one for me last year. Where was I listening to all this external input? So much external input from advisors, coaches, financial advisors, like systems advisors, spiritual advisors. Where was I listening to so much stuff outside of myself that I couldn't actually hear me, myself, and I and God? Where can I not hear us anymore? And in that, noticing and taking an inventory, that helped me get to a place where I went, okay, here's what I'm dealing with. This is where I'm abdicating because I'm so in my noise, I can't hear myself. Here's where I'm exhausted for real. Here's where I need to actually take better care of myself with this particular thing. And ironically, like I take really good care of myself. Like I'm really good about my sleep and my nutrition and my exercise and all that stuff. But there was a way in which I was getting exhausted energetically from stuff that I was tolerating and trying to hold that was just not mine to hold anymore. And so that was the first phase. The first phase, and by the way, I did not know these phases until afterwards looking back, which is often the case. Often I will go through something, I will I pay close attention. I will kind of pull out little themes I'm learning along the way. I'll see where else I see that in human beings. I'll share it with colleagues and friends. They'll start playing with them for themselves. They'll come back and they'll say, this was actually really important. And then out of that, I'll make a framework to support the rest of the world. So a lot of the stuff that you guys see me create, a lot of the frameworks, the IP methodology, the confidence equation, all these different programs, these have come from real life things that have happened either for myself or that I've seen happen so many times with clients that I've actually been able to pull out frameworks and methodologies to support people in moving through that. So that's all to say I'm telling you this because it's not like when you're in a quiet tour, you're really aware like, "Oh, I'm out of alignment. I'm in a quiet tour right now." Usually you don't see it till you're on the other side or at least halfway through it, which was my case. So anyway, when I look back and I look at these different phases, the first phase was awareness, inventory, noticing, really doing that diligently with a lot of love, a lot of grace, and a lot of compassion for myself. I think that's a really important part in this when you're noticing and you're looking at things that you need to change about yourself or about your circumstances. I think it's really, really important to have compassion and grace um, because you were doing the things that you were doing and you were showing up in the way that you were showing up for a reason. It got you to this point. Like, thank God you did it. It got you to this point. And whether how you got here is now a positive outcome or a negative outcome, there's learning to have from that. So I always want to say, like, in the noticing, there has to be compassion and grace and curiosity, right? So noticing compassion, grace, curiosity. What's here? Then once you get through the noticing phase and taking an inventory and really looking and telling yourself the truth, Because I will tell you, there were a lot of things in my noticing phase that I realized were behaviors that I had outgrown. There were behaviors and ways of being and ways of tolerating certain things that no longer were true for me anymore. But it was an old identity, and so I'd held on to them, partially out of habit, partially out of fear. Like I didn't want to let go of it because it's safe. Your old identity, by the way, is very safe to hold on to. Old identity is very safe to hold on to. You know that. Old bad patterns, old bad habits, very safe. Even like toxic situations are pretty safe for people to hold on to because you know how to deal with those. You've gotten used to them. But that's not true. Like, it's actually not safe for so many different reasons, but it can become a habit. So there's the noticing. The next phase, moving out of the noticing and awareness phase, was then to move into the emptying out phase. And the emptying out phase was where I really looked at anything that was not serving me, anything that was not in alignment with my assignment, anything that was getting in the way of me being able to do my work and to have the energy and the vitality and the stamina that I needed to be able to do what I know I'm supposed to be doing with my life right now. Anything that was in the way of that, I took it out. I emptied it out. And this included everything from like TV shows to relationships to obligations to things I'd said yes to that didn't feel right. This went down to potential business partnerships that I had been exploring because I was like, oh, this would be so much fun to do this, but really weren't right, and I knew that on a level, but I had been overriding it. So emptying out, emptying out, emptying out. Tons of emptying out. This went down to finances, expenses, anywhere where I was spending money where I was kind of like had a little bit of contraction about it, but I was doing it because I wanted to support something or whatever. I just stopped. Friendships, relationships that felt really, really one-sided, that every time I would hear from them, they were wanting something, um, and that would be the only time I would hear from them. So I'd feel like a drain. That I kind of put those on, like kind of moved those out. So moved everything out. Client work, work that no longer felt like it was the best use of me or that I was being of service, work that felt like I was trying to make things happen, empty out, empty out. Like we emptied everything out. During this time, I also realized I had had a lot of different advisors who I had just poured and poured and poured on top of trying to solve things. And in all those advisors, as much as like they were very, very smart, and I'm very, very grateful that I had that kind of support, what I realized was in all the advisory and all the piling on, I was getting further and further away from hearing myself. And so that's when I kinda had the download of like, "Oh, the only person that really knows my heart, my mission, what I'm here to do, how I wanna do it, and what I'm up to is me and God." So, I kinda, like, moved all that out. That was an emptying out too. Emptied out coaches, emptied out emptied out. So that was emptying out phase, and that was quite lovely. That took some time. That took some time. Then from there, once I felt a little bit more stable and present and quiet, and by the way, during this time, it's not like I shut down my life and went and sat on a mountaintop and thought about this. I was still leading the company, making sure we had payroll, making sure revenue was coming in, delivering the work, going and giving talks, and doing it with a full heart. Like I was very grateful to be doing all that. But I also, thank God, had the awareness and the wisdom and the discernment to know that I needed to be quieting out at the same time, taking an inventory, noticing it, emptying things out in conjunction while doing this work because I still need to support my family. I still want to do this work. I still want to be of service. But these things had to happen at the same time. I also didn't have the luxury to just stop and like kind of go check out for a year. And I mean, that would be lovely. And if you have the luxury to do it, that's fun. Like go for it. But I didn't. So I just want to offer anybody listening to this, if you're thinking, oh, well, I don't have time to check out and be quiet, you don't have to check out and be quiet. I actually, the reason why I think this was so powerful is because I did not check out. I just got quiet about what I let into my space. I got very discerning about what came into my space. I'm not exaggerating when I tell you, if it did not serve my energy, if I felt any kind of a drain, I kept it out. And if I had to let it in because it was like family or something with business and like there was a commitment, like I had to let in, I learned how to be even more loving and discerning with myself and my energy and to hold even better boundaries. So this is a really important part of emptying out, is that you might not be able to just like clear everything out, but guess what? When you get quiet and you get really connected to what you're up to, and you realize the cost of having all that noise and things in your system that are not serving you, you get really good at either moving it out or getting very discerning and clear about the boundaries that need to be in place so you can continue to do your work and keep your energy intact. A really good example of this that I hear all the time when I teach, when I speak with private clients is they'll say, well, I can't clear out my in-laws or my family or my brother or my sister or whatever, like, I can't do that. And that may or may not be true, but what they can do is they can get really good at holding their space, noticing the impact the energy has on them, limiting time, limiting exposure, and then giving feedback if needed, redesigning relationships. I mean, a lot of times people are like, oh, this person's the worst. I got to get them out. And it's like, well, no, if you actually had a conversation with them, because if you have a conversation with them, then often what will happen is you can redesign the dynamic. And you'd be surprised. Oftentimes that's incredibly useful and powerful. When it's not incredibly useful and powerful, then you got to get better at your boundaries. And then maybe you are moving them out for good. But I just want to say, like, this is not, there's nuance to this. And you won't find the nuance until you're quiet. So that's another key point here is like, you can't get the nuance and the total wisdom and the possibilities if you're so noisy and you're trying to fix everything, you're moving so quickly that you can't see the forest through the trees. So you got to get quiet. So, all right, awareness and noticing. And then the next one is emptying out. The third phase is now you get to start to put stuff back in. And oh, this is such a beautiful phase. Mm. The putting back stuff in, this putting stuff back in is when you start to realize like, oh, this actually is really life-giving for me. And oh, this is in alignment with who I want to be and how I want to show up. And oh, this supports me. And oh, this relationship, I want to nurse this relationship. And so what I have found is that anything that I've been putting back in over this period of time, anything that's coming back into my life, it is stuff I really want to be there. And if it's a relationship, I really want to pour into it. And if it's a business project, like I'm here for it. And what's happened is in the pouring back in, my yeses now, when I say a yes to somebody, they know that I mean it. So one thing I'm very grateful for is that the people that are close to me in my life, they know that I will say no to something if I can't be fully invested in it. If I can't be all in, then I will say no. Or I'll design for it and say, I want to be all in, but I can't be all in. So here's what I can give you. I can give you a month or a week or a day or whatever. Um, but what that means is because I operate that way, it means that, and I'm clear about expectations and what I can be counted on for, it means that anytime I say yes to somebody, if I say yes, like I'm in. And so pouring back in has reminded me of that because the pouring back in, anything that's getting poured back in is stuff that I really am a yes to. I really want to give it tender care and attention. So I just want to offer that. That's been a really important piece is making sure that you're pouring things back in that are in alignment for you. And my experience of that has been that when it's in alignment, I have more energy and then I can give even more. So I would say I'm a better friend now than I was a year ago because my energy is more it's more here and it's more I don't want to call it condensed, but it's can't think of the word right now. It's more directed and it's solid. It's not dispersed. All right. So another example of this is just to give you an example of emptying out and then pouring back in. I actually, in the process of this, decided to move and I literally emptied out my house. I packed up. I spent 160 hours packing stuff up, getting it organized. I donated a ton to different organizations that are doing amazing things in the world, like a ton of stuff. Empty, 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 empty. Packed up I would say I packed up 70% of this house and then was getting ready to sell it actually. And literally as we were about to sell it, we were negotiating with a potential buyer. Um, Found out that somebody in my life was uh, terminally ill. And so I decided to not move right now. I decided to stick around and to be present for that. And what was amazing is that there was an example of emptying out with the house, but then I took the house off the market, and then I got to decide, well, what do I want to put back into the house? And I have to tell you, of everything I packed up, I probably took out 2 boxes since I packed this house up that I've actually wanted to put back into the house, and that's been really fascinating. So there's a very tangible example. Um, a lot of the other stuff was noise, like, I didn't need it anymore. So there you go. So then pouring back in, now you're intentionally pouring back in, you're intentionally adding apps back to your phone or to your life. You're intentionally picking your team. Our team went through a big change in the emptying out in which, it wasn't like I said, "Okay, everyone get out." It wasn't that at all. It was like, "All right, let's really look at what we're doing, and are we doing the things that are truly creating revenue and service and impact?" And so we went through a process of taking out infrastructure, cutting a lot of our costs, a lot of the fancy stuff that we had that we really didn't need, that was just like a nice to have, but it was a lot of noise and it was a lot of extra overhead. We emptied that kind of stuff out. We refined team roles. We refined the team so that it could be more um, distilled and focused and intentional for who we are now. Because who we are now and who this company is now is very different than who we were 2 years ago. Incredibly different. And for a period of time, a couple of years actually, I was trying to keep everything in order and all holding all of it together so that we could be like we were 3 years ago, but we'd outgrown that. Like, it's definitely not who I am anymore. And like we've moved beyond with what we're doing with this work. So anyway, there was another example of emptying out and then pouring back in. So now everything that's in the company, we're intentionally putting it back in. We're still in the process, by the way. I don't think that, I'm sharing this with you guys early. I'm not through the quiet tour and like, okay, we're done and graduated. Like, here's what I did. I'm actually sharing it as I'm going through it because I have found that it's been so helpful to other people and it's been so helpful to me that I just want people to have this space to start thinking about, where could I be more quiet? Like, what would your version of this be? It's not going to be my version, but what of what I'm saying to you would be useful to you to gather and gain more clarity, discernment, and quiet within yourself so you can lead even more powerfully, quietly, and then also have plenty of energy for you and your family at the end of the day. Like, that's what I'm looking to do. I'm looking to create some kind of a space for you in that. All right. So the pouring back in, that is just delicious and juicy. We're still doing that. Every once in a while, by the way, I literally just had someone on my team yesterday. I said, "Hey, we're not done calling. Can you go through and can you look at this? What else needs to be pruned off of what we're up to? What else do we need to prune?" It's a much bigger conversation. We'll do another show about that, but that is a powerful concept of like, what do you need to prune so that you can show up the way that you're wanting and for lack of a better word, supposed to be showing up in the world in order to have the impact you're here to have. Like, that's a different thing. We'll do that on another show. But so then after you get through the uh pruning or the emptying out and then the pouring back in, now you get to move into impact. And the impact is the fourth phase, the quiet tour. Right now, I'm aware of 4 phases. That's how I'm sharing it. That's how I'm teaching it. That's how I'm speaking about it. That's how I'm coaching people through it. But the fourth phase is the impact phase. And I would say I am mostly in the impact phase now of taking the fruit of what's happened over the last 9 months, actually, and going, all right, what does this mean now for impact and what gets birthed out of this? And one example of that is this podcast. So this podcast got born during the quiet tour because this is something that I have, if I'm honest, been having the urge to do, the calling to do for years. But every time I would think about doing it, I would get overwhelmed by all the noise around it and how much work I was being told it would be to do this and how much money it was going to cost and the pressure. And then also I would get absorbed into companies, into clients, into projects, and into scaling the work. And so I kept putting this off. And this got to the point where it was so loud. This, and then also re-releasing Contagious You, which I just did in June. Contagious You and this podcast got so loud that I could no longer not listen to them anymore. And it was, but I will just say this. It was stressful at first because I was like, "Oh, these things are bugging me. Like, I got to get on it and do it." But when I got quiet and I went into my little quiet tour and I did the work of emptying out and then going, "Well, what can I pour back in?" re-releasing Contagious You to the world and starting this podcast has been so joyful and so energizing. And I'm so glad that I stopped and got quiet to do these things. So that's when you start to be able to be an impact is now you're creating impact with what you have poured back into your life with intention that's in a way that's in alignment with who you are now and what you're up to. And from this place for impact, you get to be more in alignment with your assignment. And your assignment, in my mind, is your God given gift and your calling to do the work that you're here to do as a leader and to be of service and to create the impact and also to feel good. Like to feel good, to be happy and to have space and joy and time with your family and to be able to pour into other people that really need you to pour into them and to be able to do work with other people and contribute and serve and to do whatever it is that you're here to do. That this is the part of impact. This is the impact part of the quiet tour. And then you do it quietly. It's funny. I released this podcast quietly. It was so quietly. And one of my colleagues she outed me last week. And she said, "Look what Anese released into the world quietly." And I had somebody ask me, "Well, why aren't you making a bigger thing about this?" And it's just because it's where I am right now. I just want to quietly be taking one step in front of the other and staying in alignment with my assignment, going only as fast as I can go to stay in alignment with my assignment. So each step has been quiet. And right now we're in quiet impact. So all to say, I'm going to go ahead and close this down. If this is an interesting podcast to you, an interesting topic, and you would like more of the personal side of this, let me know in the comments. Let me know. Send me a note. Let me know. I will. I'll see if it makes sense. If it feels like it'll be of service to release the other one, where I talk a little bit more about like my own personal experience with it and some of the stuff that led me into it. Um, a little bit more poignant to talk about, but I'm happy to talk about if it's of service. So if you're feeling like that would be helpful to you, not just from a like voyeuristic, curious thing, like, oh, what happened? But like actually, Nate, it would be very helpful for me to understand and to hear a little bit about what happened for you, because maybe you got a little bit of that going on yourself, or some version of it. Again, my version is always going to be different than your version. I don't even presuppose to think anybody is the same. However, we are all beautiful human beings working through this life together. So if that would be helpful to you, please let me know and we'll look at releasing it at a later date. But for right now, we're going to leave you with this. Um, one thing that has come out, I will just say, I'd be remiss if I did not say this. One thing that has come out of this quiet tour in the impact component was I realized about a month ago, 6 weeks ago, I realized like, I keep sharing this and these phases with people I love and care about, and I keep hearing about what's happening for them because they're actually doing the work around this. I think there's actually a framework to share with the world. And so I'm creating a handbook. There's a handbook where people can go through and do it on their own. You guys can do it in a book club or whatever. And you can do your own quiet tour privately, just a little handbook. It's like a book. It's not fancy. It's not huge, but it's powerful. It's potent. And then I'm also going to run for fun a cohort starting in August. On August 3rd, we're going to do a 40-day quiet tour with the 4 phases, do a one-time live. I'll run the cohort, do it live with me teaching, very light, very quiet. It'll be delicious. And then you'll go through your own quiet tour. And there's some nice, things in there, like you can come and do and ask me anything. We can do a little live exchanges and stuff if you wish. But that will be available. And actually that is available. So we'll make sure that we put that in show notes. So if you're interested in joining that, either to do it on your own or to join us in community, you are welcome to do that. After I do it this one time live, we'll probably turn it into a product. And then if you want to go through the full 40-day process, in the live training, quote unquote live, you'll be able to purchase it and just get it on your own. So you can walk yourself through it or do it with your friends and whatnot. But that is an offering to you if this is feeling like it would be helpful to you. So, all right. So I just want to say thank you to all the people that have asked me about this and have asked me to share a little bit more. Again, I got to underline again and again and again, because this is the number one thing people think. This is not about shutting out your life and being quiet and not doing anything. This is about staying very, very much in your life, leading your business, leading your family, being with your kids, not disappearing, but being able to access a different quiet with yourself. That then the more you do that, the more that will generate or will show up and manifest itself in the way that you're showing up with other people in your leadership and calming in your own nervous system. For example, I'm only asking people to spend 15 to 30 minutes a day when we actually go through the quiet tour process. 15 to 30 minutes of dedicated time a day. You can find that. You just turn off your TV. We'll figure it out. Anyway, all to say, beautiful, beautiful. Have a great day. This is a longer podcast. Thanks for being with me this long. Again, if this is useful to you, if you like it, please subscribe, give it stars, do all the things, share it. You're going to see this on YouTube. I've got the video we're putting on YouTube for right now. The actual audio is on Spotify and Apple and other places where podcasts go. I haven't quite figured out how to get the video up on Spotify yet, but don't worry, guys. We're working on it. Like I said, 10 sessions to figure it all out. All right. Lots of love to you, and I will see you soon. Bye.